Good evening, and thank you for spending this time with me. I'm Dr. Wilson, and tonight I want to walk you through something that quietly affects millions of people, especially those of us over 60, and that almost never comes up at a regular checkup, even though it might be one of the most important numbers in your entire cardiovascular picture. Most of us think of blood pressure as a single number we get checked once or twice a year. You sit in the waiting room, the nurse wraps the cuff around your arm, there's a squeeze, a release, and then a number that either earns a nod of approval or a slight frown and a conversation about medication. For years, that single afternoon reading has been treated as the whole story. But the truth is, it's only a snapshot, and snapshots can be misleading. Here's what most people never get told. Blood pressure isn't supposed to stay the same all day and all night. In a healthy body, it follows a rhythm. As the sun goes down and you settle into sleep, your nervous system shifts into a calmer state. Stress hormones decline, your heart rate slows, and your blood pressure is supposed to drop, typically somewhere between 10 and 20% lower than your daytime numbers. Doctors call this nocturnal dipping, and it isn't a bonus feature for especially healthy people. It's a basic biological requirement. That nighttime dip is when your heart gets a break from its workload, and when the inner walls of your arteries get a chance to repair the small amounts of wear and tear they absorb during a normal day. Now here's the part that surprises a lot of patients. Somewhere between a quarter and a third of people with high blood pressure don't experience that overnight drop at all. Their pressure simply stays elevated through the night, sometimes even higher than during the day. Doctors refer to these patients as non-dippers, and the pattern becomes dramatically more common with age. In adults over 65, more than half of those with hypertension fall into this category. And the research is fairly consistent on this point. People whose pressure fails to dip at night carry a meaningfully higher risk of cardiovascular events compared with those whose pressure follows the normal nighttime decline. The reason this gets missed so often is structural, not anyone's fault. A standard office visit happens in the middle of the day, when your body is naturally calmer anyway. That reading can look perfectly normal while something very different is happening at 3 in the morning. I've had patients in my own practice who did everything right. They took their medication every single day, they watched their salt intake, they walked regularly, and every office visit came back with numbers that made us both feel good. It wasn't until one of them happened to be fitted with a take-home monitor, the kind that checks pressure automatically through the night, that we discovered her overnight readings were running dangerously high, even though her daytime numbers looked excellent. That single test changed how we managed her care, and it's a conversation worth having with your own doctor, if any of this sounds familiar. There's a related phenomenon worth understanding too, called the morning surge. In the hours after waking, roughly between 6 in the morning and noon, your body naturally ramps up. Cortisol rises, adrenaline and noradrenaline increase, your heart rate climbs, and your blood vessels tighten slightly to prepare you for the day. In a body whose arteries got their proper overnight rest, this transition is usually handled smoothly. But in someone whose pressure never dropped overnight, this same morning surge places extra strain on arteries that didn't get a chance to recover. This is part of why cardiac events cluster disproportionately in the late morning hours, rather than being spread evenly across the day. There are also a few common evening habits that can quietly work against a healthy overnight dip, and they're worth knowing about. One is licorice root, which shows up in a surprising number of soothing bedtime teas. A compound in licorice can interfere with an enzyme your kidneys rely on to manage cortisol, and the downstream effect can be sodium retention and a rise in blood pressure, sometimes substantial enough to work against your medication. It's worth checking the ingredient label on any nighttime tea blend you use regularly. Another is alcohol before bed. A glass of wine in the evening can cause blood vessels to open up briefly, producing a short dip in pressure that feels relaxing. But as the body metabolizes the alcohol overnight, there's often a rebound effect, a surge in stress hormones that can push morning blood pressure higher than it would have been otherwise. And for anyone taking calcium channel blockers, grapefruit juice deserves real caution. It contains compounds that interfere with how the liver breaks down certain medications, which can cause those drugs to build up to unexpectedly high levels in the bloodstream. This is a well-documented interaction, and if grapefruit is part of your routine, it's worth a direct conversation with whoever prescribes your medication. Underneath all of this is a piece of biology that explains why these nighttime patterns matter so much. The inner lining of your blood vessels, called the endothelium, constantly produces a molecule called nitric oxide, which signals the surrounding muscle to relax and allow blood to flow more easily. This is essentially what blood pressure medications are designed to support. But in older adults, particularly those with ongoing inflammation, unstable molecules called free radicals can intercept and neutralize that nitric oxide signal before it reaches its target. When that happens repeatedly through the night, the arteries stay tighter than they should, and the protective lining inside the vessels, called the glycocalyx, can gradually wear down, leaving the artery wall more exposed. There's also a connection many people don't expect, involving sleep itself. A significant share of patients whose blood pressure resists multiple medications turn out to have undiagnosed sleep apnea, a condition where breathing repeatedly stops and starts during the night. Each pause triggers a stress response that spikes blood pressure, sometimes dramatically, while the person remains completely unaware it's happening. If you wake up exhausted, no matter how long you slept, or if a partner has mentioned irregular breathing or snoring, that's worth raising at your next appointment, specifically in connection with blood pressure. And here's something that surprises many of my patients. Waking up multiple times a night to use the bathroom is often blamed entirely on the bladder or prostate, when in some cases the real driver is the kidneys working overtime to clear sodium, a process that can be linked to elevated nighttime pressure rather than a urinary issue on its own. If any of this resonates with your own experience, it may be worth asking your physician about a 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor, a portable cuff that records your pressure automatically through an entire day and night. It's the most reliable way to see whether your nighttime numbers are dipping the way they should, and Medicare and most insurance plans typically cover it when there's a documented clinical reason to ask. Now, let's talk about something with genuinely encouraging research behind it: hibiscus tea. Several clinical studies, including work compared directly against prescription blood pressure medications, have found that hibiscus extract can meaningfully lower both systolic and diastolic blood pressure over a period of weeks. The mechanism appears to involve plant compounds called anthocyanins, which seem to help protect nitric oxide from being broken down, along with a mild natural effect on the same pathway that ACE inhibitor medications target. There's also early research suggesting that certain antioxidants in hibiscus get converted by gut bacteria into compounds that support healthier mitochondrial function in heart tissue, though that particular benefit seems to depend a great deal on the health of a person's gut microbiome, which is one reason results vary so much from person to person. For those interested in trying it, the research generally points to brewing it strong, using around 2 to 3 cups of properly steeped hibiscus tea daily, ideally in the evening, made from dried hibiscus calyces steeped in hot water for 10 to 15 minutes until it turns a deep red color. Pale, weak hibiscus tea, or pre-sweetened commercial versions, won't deliver the same concentration of active compounds, and the added sugar can work against the very effect you're going for. One important note, and I say this directly because it matters: hibiscus is not a neutral beverage. It has real, measurable effects on blood pressure, and combining it carelessly with ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or diuretics can occasionally cause blood pressure to drop more than intended, leading to dizziness or fall risk, particularly in older adults. If you're on any blood pressure medication, the right approach is to introduce hibiscus gradually, monitor your numbers at home, and loop in your prescribing physician before making it a daily habit. Nothing here should ever replace or override what your doctor has prescribed. This is about adding informed conversation to your care, not replacing it. What I'd really like you to take away from all of this isn't a single magic fix, but a fuller picture. Nighttime blood pressure is a real and measurable part of cardiovascular health that often goes unmeasured simply because of when and how we typically check it. Understanding your own overnight patterns, being thoughtful about what you eat and drink in the evening, and having specific, informed conversations with your doctor can make a genuine difference. Many of my own patients who took these steps came back months later with steadier numbers, more energy in the morning, and a real sense that they finally understood what their body had been quietly dealing with all along. That kind of clarity is available to you too, and it starts with a conversation you're now well equipped to have.